15, please. 10 seconds. Here we go. In 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the second half of the Boston Media Consortium Senate primary debate. We turn our attention now to the two Democrats in this race. Let's meet them. 8th District Congressman Stephen Lynch and 5th District Congressman Edward Markey. We'll begin, gentlemen, with questions directed to both of you. 1 minute to respond each, and then a little time to mix it up. And I'll remind you, the filibuster is something you save if elected to the United States Senate. So I will hurry you along. A lot to try and get through in this half hour. Capitol Hill is gridlocked. Congress's job disapproval rating is 80%. The people's business is not getting done. Why should the voters of Massachusetts think that two incumbents, more than 30 years on the Hill, more than a decade on the Hill, why should they think that two incumbents are the answer and not the problem? We'll start with Mr. Markey on this.
Well, anyone who knows me knows that I take on the tough issues and I get results. I've passed dozens of bills with Republicans, bipartisan, they're now the law of the nation. I want to take my experience over to the United States Senate in order to make that institution work better. We've just lost 75 years of experience with John Kerry and with Ted Kennedy. I took on the NRA and their attempts to keep Chinese assault weapons from coming to the streets of our country. I was successful in keeping those guns out of our country. I was successful in passing bipartisan legislation that broke down the monopolies that unleashed a telecommunications revolution that led to tens of thousands of new jobs being created here in Massachusetts. I'm leading the effort on a clean energy revolution that is now one of the top new job-creating sectors in the Massachusetts economy. I'm running for the United States Senate because the Tea Party Republicans in the House are paralyzing our government. Over in the Senate, we can get things done and paradox those Republicans who are controlled by the Tea Party over in the House of Representatives.
Mr. Lynch, a minute.
Lardy, thanks for having us. I want to thank Ed for attending as well. I think your question was about how do you get people to work together? And I think one of the problems we have in the Senate right now that I could help with is it's the same as in the House. You've got people in a hard position on the hard left for the Democrats and the hard right for the Republicans. And sometimes the party positions solidify that intractability. I think people know my record is that, hey, I don't work for Nancy Pelosi and I won't work for Harry Reid. I've taken positions that have been outside the direction of my party, try to cross the aisle when I can. There is a difference between compromise and surrender, however, and I do agree with Ed on the one point that sometimes the intractable positions taken by the hard right, especially with Tea Party members, really leave us no alternative.
All right, let's move on. The health care reform bill was signed into law 3 years ago this month. Congressman Markey, you voted for it. Congressman Lynch, you voted against it. Explain those votes. You're both looking at the same testimony, the same background information. How did you come to different conclusions? Mr. Lynch, we'll start with you.
Sure. There were three major flaws with the Affordable Care Act. One was it gave an antitrust exemption to insurance companies, which allows them to keep prices very, very high and allows them to act in restraint of trade. The second thing that the Affordable Care Act did was it took away the limited amount of competition that we had with a public option, which allowed states to go out and actually create competition in the insurance industry by offering low-cost plans. The third flaw in the Affordable Care Act was it piled taxes upon taxes upon taxes upon health care. And so now we have a situation where employers are running away from their health care obligations. It was a very flawed bill, and we missed a real opportunity to create real health care reform.
Mr. Markey.
Yeah, the vote for President Obama's health care bill was the proudest vote of my career. It ensured that if a person has a pre-existing condition, that they cannot be denied health insurance, that every child in America would have health care, that if a person in a family became ill, that family did not become bankrupt. This was a critically important historic bill that Ted Kennedy had been fighting for a generation. Every Republican in the House of Representatives voted no on that bill. Every Republican running for the Senate of Massachusetts this year is saying they would kill Obamacare. Steve, when that bill came up, you were wrong when you were needed most on that bill. That was the only option we had, to support President Obama and to put that bill on the books.
Rebuttal?
Sure. What we did there was wrong. We had one opportunity to provide good health care reform. Here's how it was. In the negotiations with the healthcare companies and insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies, what we wanted was affordable health care with wide access, good quality health care. What the insurance companies wanted, they wanted 31 million new customers. And we gave them everything they wanted in that bill. And it was like a hostage situation where we not only paid the ransom, but we let the insurance companies keep the hostages. Now we're in a tough spot. We're in a tough spot. You're supporting repeal of sections of the Affordable Care Act that you voted for because now you realize that the medical device tax is killing our manufacturers in the state. So more and more people who voted for it are now picking all these bad sections out of the bill and saying, oh, we didn't like those really, but we voted for them.
Let's let this breathe, Mr. Markey.
Thank you. Well, again, from Harry Truman through Ted Kennedy, we fought hard as Democrats for national health insurance. That bill was the only bill on the House floor. Scott Brown had just won the Senate seat. So we only had that bill. And all those protections, pre-existing conditions, every child covered, seniors covered for prescription drugs, women not discriminated ever again, so that they have to pay more than men. All of that was in that bill. And the Republicans are going to try to repeal it. And I want to go to the Senate to make sure they do not repeal that historic piece of legislation based upon Massachusetts law.
Just very quick follow-up. Are you, in fact, in favor of repealing or changing sections of the ACA, of the Affordable Care Act, as written?
As long as those repeals do not in any way harm poor people or middle class in our country.
And Mr. Lynch, would you vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act?
No, I vote to fix it, though. And it needs an awful lot of fixing. We've lost all our leverage, as I've explained. We've already given away everything to the insurance companies. They now have the 31 million new customers, and they don't want to come to the table.
Point
now.
made. I want to move to abortion. Over the years, your respective positions on abortion rights have changed. Mr. Markey, you first ran for Congress with the support of anti-abortion groups. In the 1980s, you changed. Mr. Lynch, you say there's a constitutional right to abortion, but call yourself pro-life. I'd like you to discuss how you came to the positions you have today. And we'll start with Mr. Markey on this one.
Thank you. Well, I'm proud to have the support of Planned Parenthood and NARAL in this race. For 30 years, I have been a consistent supporter of a woman's right to choose. I believe that a woman should make that decision only in consultation with her physician, her family, and herself. And it's something that I believe has to be protected at all costs. And for 30 years, that has been the position which I have taken. And so it just is a core constitutional belief that I have that Roe v. Wade must be protected, but that even when key votes like the Stupak Amendment comes up on the floor of the House just 3 years ago that would deny a woman insurance coverage so that abortion would be covered from an insurance company perspective, I made sure that I voted against that amendment. Steve voted for it.
Mr. Lynch, square your position for us. Where are you?
Sure. Well, I consider myself pro-life. I know I've read recently and heard recently that I'm not pro-life or I'm not pro-life enough. And I'll confess, I'm not an expert on church teachings, but I am an expert on what I believe and what I don't believe. And I don't believe that attacking Roe v. Wade is part of any solution. Attacking Roe v. Wade won't make abortions go away. It'll just change the setting from a clinical setting to one that's much more dangerous for women. And so that's why in my time in the House, I've taken the floor of the House of Representatives to defend funding for Planned Parenthood, because they are the ones that are actually out there with birth control counseling and contraceptive counseling to reduce the number of unwanted pregnancies, which is the real goal if we want to reduce the number of abortions in this country. So, and ironically, that seems to be working. The periods in the last 2 years where we have the greatest access to contraceptives are the first times in 40 years where we've seen a drop in the number of abortions. So that's the approach we should be taking.
All right. Any rebuttal, Mr. Markey?
No, again, I just believe it's a fundamental right. It's a constitutional right.
Why did your position change in the 80s? What drove that?
Well, 30 years ago, I just came, I think, to the logical conclusion that that is a decision which a woman has to make for herself, again, in consultation with her physician and her family. And it's now been 30 years, and that is why Planned Parenthood has endorsed me in this Senate race.
And what's driven your...
Well, I just want to say one thing. Look, you mentioned the Stupak Amendment. Even the Stupak Amendment had an exception for rape and incest. Your provisions that you provided before you changed your position actually went after that. You actually supported an amendment to overturn Roe v. Wade. So it's not just an evolution. This is acrobatics
No.
on this position.
For 30 years, RD, I've been a consistent supporter. And again, that's why I have the support of Planned Parenthood and NARAL in this race. 30 years. 3 years ago, Steve was voting for the Stupak Amendment, denying insurance coverage for a woman to have this option medically provided to her.
In this state, it's provided by Medicaid. It's not covered by the federal government.
All right, let's move on to the next section of our forum this evening, and that's candidate-to-candidate questions. We want to do several rounds of this. The format will be quick question, 1 minute response, quick follow-up, and 30 seconds for a response to that, and try and get a little dialogue going. Mr. Lynch, we'll start with you. A question for Mr. Markey.
Sure. Ed, recently you supported the Wall Street bailout that bailed out Wall Street's biggest banks, that caused a massive problem for the American people, destroyed trillions of dollars in wealth for a lot of families. You took $787 billion from taxpayers who, in my district, I got tens of thousands of people who don't even have a bank account. You took their tax money, gave it to Wall Street. Then, when the American taxpayer was up against it with the debt limit crisis, you voted not to rescue them. So you bail out Wall Street and you refuse to rescue the American taxpayer. And I'm just curious how you reconcile those two votes.
Well, look, in 2008, we were in the 8th year of George Bush turning Wall Street into a casino. His regulators had turned a blind eye. The economy was collapsing. The banks were collapsing. Barney Frank, John Kerry, Barack Obama, and we agreed that we could not allow the banking system to collapse onto the hopes and dreams of every family in our country. Not just a small number of people without bank accounts. There would have been tens of millions of people without bank accounts if those banks had collapsed. And so for me, it was a decision not to bail out the bankers, but rather to ensure that the financial system did not send us back to the Great Depression, which is what many economists were predicting would happen if we did not cast that vote. So I voted for Main Street to make sure that Wall Street did not destroy all of those hopes and all of those dreams. And we are now in the 34th consecutive month of an economic recovery because we made sure that our economic system did not collapse.
Quick follow-up question.
Sure, but the bill that you passed, the bill that you voted for, did not bail out Main Street. The bill was supposed to, in theory, help Main Street, but what happened was the banks just stuffed their banks full of cash, number one, and never increased lending. And so you can take credit for something that never happened, I guess, but the bailout was certainly something that has to this day ensured that these banks will grow bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mr. Markey.
And they've learned nothing from the lesson.
Look, I voted against the repeal of Glass-Steagall in 1999. I did not want them to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I opposed it. But I also had to deal with the reality of what happened after George Bush turned a blind eye. to real regulation of derivatives. I'm the author of the Insider Trading Act, under which people are prosecuted. I'm the author of the laws that would have controlled derivatives, controlled credit default swaps. Newt Gingrich and others blocked me from putting those protective laws on the books. So, no, ordinary families had to be protected, because if those banks went under, just like the 1930s, there would have been a financial calamity that we would have not recovered from for a generation.
Mr. Markey to Mr. Lynch. Question.
Steve, we had a decision to make on the sequester back in 2011. In that bill, we knew that there could be draconian cuts to the National Institutes of Health budget, to Pell Grants, to the investment in clean energy technologies. I voted no on the sequester. You voted yes. Could you tell us why?
Oh, absolutely. We were, as you know, up against the debt limit, so that we would have defaulted on all of our debt for the entire country. So we have over $16 trillion in debt. So if we had not voted to increase the debt limit, which Mr. Markey did, then our credit rating would have plummeted. And the interest increase on the 3 trillion at the time would have been subject to a much higher interest rate. So we would have dug ourselves a deeper and deeper hole right away. What the debt limit compromise did was it allowed us 18 months, I believe it was, to come up with a plan. They created a super committee that was supposed to come up with a plan to with a scalpel, go through the budget and figure out what areas to cut. Unfortunately, the super committee was never able to do that. But the idea was either we were going to have a disaster right away, or give ourselves 18 more months to try to come up with a plan to respond.
Quick follow-up.
Look, the sequester could lead to the loss of 60,000 jobs in Massachusetts this year, and that's just the first of 9 years in terms of these draconian cuts in programs that are right at the heart of the Massachusetts Innovation Economy Plan. That's who we are. We're biotech, we're clean tech, we're education, we're healthcare. And so when these cuts hit, they hit us disproportionately hard. They are going to hit our economic growth. They are going to hit us where it hurts most, which is this future-oriented economy which we have, which is going to be seriously harmed by sequestration.
15 seconds, Steve.
Well, that's contrary to what you actually did in the Affordable Care Act, because you put such a tremendous tax on medical device manufacturers that the medical device manufacturers in my district are looking at expanding in Ireland, because the taxes that you put in are so high they become confiscatory. So that's become a real problem as well.
Mr. Lynch, a question for Congressman Markey.
Sure. Ed, in addition to bailing out the Wall Street banks, you also voted for NAFTA that shipped hundreds of thousands of American jobs over to Mexico. Didn't do much for Mexico either, because they're still struggling. And most recently, you sided against the local fishermen in Gloucester and New Bedford. And it just seems a pattern where and it happens in the telecommunications industry too, where you're siding with the big guys against the little guys. I mean, our local fishermen, those are small businesses too. And you're the only member of the Massachusetts delegation that did not support pushing back on the catch limits that are putting them out of business and allowing these big multinational corporations to actually control the whole food source, in our fishing areas. So,
okay.
What's up with that?
We've got the issue here.
Okay. Well, I was just out on the House floor with John Tierney and Bill Keating just 6 weeks ago, trying to get an amendment on the floor to bring disaster relief post-Hurricane Sandy to all of the fishermen in Massachusetts. I didn't see you out there during that debate, during that effort to have that vote on the House floor. I do believe that we have to have a plan for our fishing industry. It has to be based upon conversations with the local industry. But just to tell you, on telecommunications, I took on the monopolies, Steve. I broke down those monopolies. Breaking down those monopolies in the 1996 Telecommunications Act unleashed $1 trillion worth of private sector capital that has created thousands of jobs. Yes, you know the names Google and eBay and Amazon and Hulu and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, but there are thousands of other companies, many of them here in Massachusetts, whose names we don't know, that are the heartbeat of the new innovation economy here in the state of Massachusetts. And I'm very proud of taking on those monopolies, because that was stultifying our ability to be the engine of innovation growth for Massachusetts and for our country.
I want to make sure you each get 2 questions. You've had 2 questions. Mr. Markey's had only 1.
Yeah,
we're tight on time here.
Okay. Well, I just want to say, look, the fishermen don't want disaster relief. They just want to fish, number one. And if you think that we've controlled the monopolies in telecommunications, I want everybody at home right now to go over and open up your cable bill and take a peek inside. Read that cable bill. Do you think you're being treated fairly there by the telecommunications industry?
Look, let me just say that when I passed my bills back in the 1990s, people did not pat their pockets to make sure they had their mobile device with them, that they had a smartphone, that they had all of these new information technologies. And by the way, that revolution is now wrapped around the world. It's only 17 years. I'm very proud of that.
All right, I want to make sure you get your second question.
Sure, thank you. Steve, you're a real champion for the VA. I'm concerned about what could happen to our veterans coming back from Iraq and from Afghanistan. Could you tell us how you view what the solution has to be to make sure that the care is there for them after they've served our country?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ed. That's a very kind question, and you're a gentleman for asking that. As you know, when I first came into office, one of the first receptions that I had, Ed was there, Ted Kennedy was there. He said, he said, congratulations, Ted Kennedy said, you've been assigned to the Veterans Affairs Committee. And he said, that's the good news. He said, the bad news is they want to close all 3 of your VA hospitals down. The one in West Roxbury, the one in Jamaica Plain, and the one in Brockton. I'm happy to say now, with the help of not only Ed Markey, but also the other members of the delegation, and Senator Kennedy and Kerry at the time, we were able to push back. And now not only aren't those 3 hospitals open, but they're all being expanded. What we're missing right now, though, to your point, Ed, is we're getting a lot of our sons and daughters coming home from Iraq after 3, 4, 5 tours of duty, and we're missing something. We're not correctly diagnosing the PTSD, and in some cases the TBI, the traumatic brain injury, and that is a crisis that is just on the horizon that we haven't really dealt with yet. And I think the answer is we need more funding, better diagnosis, and better focus on those veterans coming home. But
right,
thank you for your question.
Very quick.
Yeah, thank you. We fought 2 wars. We did not pay for those 2 wars. We just, put it on the cuff. And that was wrong. They're the first wars we did not pay for. But I agree with Steve. The one thing that we should obligate ourselves to paying for is the care for these veterans, for their retirement, for their health care, for their rehabilitation, for their employment. And we should not shortchange any one of these veterans. And I honor Steve for his work in that area.
All right. Any response, or are we there?
No.
Okay. Good. Let's move on. I want to talk about the economy a little bit. Unemployment is easing. Real estate coming back. We saw the story in the Globe this morning. Stocks are up. Those are all good signs. But working and retired folks with savings accounts have, in effect, subsidized this recovery because of low interest rates. Is it time to take the foot off the gas pedal, let interest rates inch up, even if it affects the pace of the recovery? Mr. Lynch.
Well, I'd like to believe all that the economy is doing well, but that's not the case in communities of color. That's not the case in communities of color. If you go to Fall River, if you go to Brockton, Massachusetts, last week I did a walk through Dudley Square. There's some construction there, but I need to see more more folks from the neighborhood, more people of color on those jobs. If you look at the unemployment rate among people of color across our state, the recovery may be reaching Wall Street. It may be reaching State Street, but it's not reaching Blue Hill Ave. You know, we had an opening of my headquarters, my campaign headquarters, on Blue Hill Ave. And I've been meeting with a lot of the black ministers over the past few months. And the unemployment is exceedingly high in those neighborhoods. So I think we need to keep working at this because the recovery is not here. I guess it means we need to keep rates low to give those families a chance to catch up as well.
All right, interest rates, should we let them drift up?
RD, we have still an economic crisis for many in this country. 44 million Americans live in poverty. That's $22,000 for a family of four. 16 million children live in those families. So, no, we cannot raise interest rates at this point in time. 27% of African Americans live in poverty today. 27% of Hispanics live in poverty today. And sequestration is going to actually serve as a brake upon economic recovery. It is going to cut economic growth. So we need low interest rates to serve as the antidote to sequestration, or else we are going to see catastrophic economic conditions unfold in our country.
We're down to about 3 minutes. Very quick, yes or no question for both of you. Chairman Bernanke's term as chairman of the Fed is up in 2014. Has he earned another term, Mr. Markey?
In my opinion, yes.
Mr. Lynch?
And look, he has been chairman during one of our most calamitous periods, not of his making necessarily, but I think that he does deserve. He's also an expert on recessions and depressions, which I think is handy information.
I said yes or no.
Oh yeah, okay. I guess it's a yes. I guess yeah. I'm sorry.
All right, good. Let me move on. I want to get in at least one foreign policy question here. The president says Iran cannot be allowed to obtain nuclear weapons. North Korea already has them and has been doing a lot of saber rattling lately. Are there any circumstances, any tripwire under which you would support American military action against either one, Mr. Markey?
I think that if North Korea attacks South Korea, that we have a military obligation to protect South Korea, and I think the president has made that very clear. With regard to the Iranian nuclear program, I'm very comforted to know that John Kerry, who is going to be a great Secretary of State, is now orchestrating the effort to put together the coalition that puts the tightest possible sanctions humanly possible on the Iranian economy. We have to avoid Iran having a nuclear weapon at all costs.
Mr. Lynch.
I would tend to agree with Ed on the Iran situation. I was in South Korea recently, visited the DMZ. There is need for caution there. It's an unstable government that we're dealing with there now, and they're very unpredictable. But we have to have a good coalition with the Russians and the Japanese and the Chinese primarily to basically make sure that part of the world is stabilized.
That's going to do it. The half hour flew by. Thank you both. Our thanks to Democratic Congressman Ed Markey and Stephen Lynch for their participation tonight. And to the three Republican candidates for Senate, Michael Sullivan, Dan Winslow, and Gabriel Gomez. They also were in our first half hour. Remember, there's just 5 weeks to go until the primary, April 30th. I'm R.D. Saul for the Boston Media Consortium. Thanks for joining us tonight.